Everybody, we're here for our second office hours for the Urban Agriculture Grant Program. I do want to take one last tally. If anybody would like for me to spend 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more, going over some of the slide decks, which also are available on the website, on the Urban Ag website. Please let me know if you would like me to spend time going over program slides and doing a review. If you would benefit from that, I'm going to keep admitting people as they come in. Please just take yourself off mute or do the hand raise button. If you would like me to spend the time to go over the slides, just let me know. Otherwise, I would like to dedicate this time to whatever folks need in the room. I'm not seeing any raised hands. One thing to note is today I don't have any support. I'm here on my own. So if we could maybe avoid the chat, because it's hard for me to be paying attention to both the screen and I know it's not that hard, but feel free to just take yourself off mute. We can just all participate. Maybe use the raised hand so that I know what order to call people in if that's useful. But otherwise, why don't we go ahead and just jump into Q&A, and in which case just either unmute yourself or use your raised hand feature and I'll call on people in order. So whoever wants to start is more than welcome.
Hi, can I start? I didn't find the raise hand button.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Nichelle. I live in San Diego.
Okay.
So I have a question around, I guess, what's considered a small business or just the questions around that. So me and my boyfriend want to start a farm. He he's a sole prop right now. So I guess when and it's not necessarily a farm, but it is plantee related. So does the sole prop have to be related to, I guess, farm or urban ag to apply for this?
So can you give me a little bit more specifics so that I have?
Okay, so his sole prop is he's a garden educator. And then he also he does maintenance for a community garden and he does lawn maintenance. So those are the things that he gets his sole prop 1099 contractor info or information from. So I guess I was just wondering then that's okay. Okay. And then my other question is, so I have a corporate 9 to 5. I guess the question is, does he need to be the lead applicant or can I be the lead applicant?
Well, eligibility for track 2 includes you have to meet the definition. If you go to the RFA, or it's also in the actual application, you'll see the definition for what a qualified small business is. I can put the definition in the chat right now. So as long as you're meeting that the definition there, you would be eligible to apply for track 2. Also, obviously, if you're in a qualified urban area as defined.
I guess the question is then, because I'm looking at a copy, it's like a PDF of the applicant information. So they have the organization and the lead applicant. I guess I'm just wondering, does he need to be the lead applicant or can I be the lead applicant and then the organization? I guess I just answered my own question, talking it out loud.
I mean, to be completely honest, it's whatever tax identification number is associated with the contract is going to be the applicant and then have to deal with all of the financials. So, the contract. Okay. Does that?
Yeah, I got it as I said it out loud. So
beautiful. All right.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah. Anybody have anything? I think Yolanda, you had.
Yeah, I did. So my farm is in one of the sites on the map.
Okay.
One of the folks who purchases my product, their headquarters, I sell it to their headquarters and then they distribute the food to people who are in the census tract.
Okay.
So is that okay?
That's totally okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
their address doesn't happen to be in that overlay.
Okay, yeah, but the final consumers of your products are
Yes.
the community members. Yeah, that's
Yes.
totally fine. So at
Okay.
the end of the day, you just want to include in your narrative when you're talking about the community you're serving,
Mm-hmm.
you just want to be specific about who's consuming your product, and or let's say you're doing educational stuff. It sounds like you're primarily a farmer.
Right.
Yeah, then you would just list off who's the end user really
Okay,
at
great.
the end of the day. So yeah, that would be
Cool. Thank
great.
you.
Sure thing. For folks who just entered the room, just want to let you all know there will be an update coming out before the end of the week, letting folks know that are interested in applying for Track 1, that Inland Empire is added as an additional region. There will be, and these are for folks who weren't in the room a few minutes ago, there will be an announcement made via the newsletter, and also some targeted outreach, hopefully with some help of some friends, identifying some community stakeholders that might make a good fit for that. But just a TBD, if you have an application open already, or if you know of anyone interested in being a Track 1 applicant for the Inland Empire, to please know that that is now a qualified region. So that's just a small announcement in our office hours. But yeah, formal announcements will be made at the end of the week as soon as we have the web team approve all of the updated materials and those things get uploaded.
Okay, I have a few other questions. One regarding Track 1. Notice, that's primarily described as a block grant, whereby an organization could work with projects during a project period as they become available and provide funding ranging between $5,000 and $60,000, provided that they meet the guidelines. Now, does Track 1 also support other types of initiatives, let's say a regional planning effort? Or, what are the types of other things other than the block grant function might Track 1 cover?
Yeah, I know the term block grant is usually used for like federal grants that have it has like a really specific definition. And so I almost feel like it might be creating more confusion than it's worth for the really for folks who are very familiar with federal grant processes. Really, I think what's meant by the term with regards to Track 1 is it's meant to actually just represent pass-through funding. It's just a pass-through funding model. So the primary objective of Track 1, as I'm sure you well know already, is to fund all of those various activities that are on that eligibility list of, equipment and community engagement work, workforce development. It's listed in the RFA. So outside of really having a focus on providing that pass-through funding, the only other eligible expense that Track 1 applicants can use some funding for would be, again, to fund those same activities being done in-house within that range of $5,000 to $60,000. But it doesn't have any additional capacity for like regional planning or research. It's really meant to be to help implement on the ground like tangible projects that the community can engage with, which I know, in order to be effective, you have to have all this research and all of these things. So I don't discount the value of that, but this particular round of funding opportunity is really meant for the implementation of like tangible projects.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds as if those types of tangible projects are pretty much consistent with the types of projects under Track 2. It's just that the funding is different in amounts.
100% correct. It's the same exact list of eligible activities. shared between sub-awardees of track 1 and then track 2. Essentially, the goal and the reason that it was created that way was really because track 1, the goal was to get funding to people who wouldn't be able to who don't have the capacity to manage a CDFA contract.
Yeah.
And so taking all of that reporting and Amplifund and all of that off the table and still allowing community projects to get done by working with a local community-based organization and not having to deal with all of those contracts and things. So you're correct in that they're funding the same work capacity. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And
Sure.
then questions around the role of contractors,
Mhm.
either in track 1 or more specifically track 2.
Mhm.
It looks as if you submit a budget with a pre-identified contractor, that contract limit with that contractor is $5,000.
Oh, so is that the information that's in the contractor guidelines document?
I'll have to go back through my notes, but I thought, yeah, there was some guideline about a $5,000 contractor limit. Otherwise, contracts would have to go out
For bid.
for bid.
Yeah, so I would have to I don't have those things memorized. I just tend to go and refer to the guidelines doc
Okay.
before I answer anything. So what I can do is look for the guidelines doc and actually kind of review that. Because if I'm being honest with you, I would need to read that to make sure that what I answer to you right now is correct.
That's okay. If if you need some time to respond, by the next meeting,
Okay.
we can work on that as well.
That would be great. That way I can actually read through the contractor guidelines. I know that the one place where the $5,000 limit comes automatically into my mind that I know for sure is the difference between supplies and equipment. And I don't think that that's at all what you're talking about, obviously. But that's where that rings a bell automatically for me, is that there's a distinction between, you can't have a piece of equipment that, or any kind of material object that costs more than $5,000 in your supplies list. That would have to be considered equipment. And I know that that's not what you're talking about, but that's literally the only place I can think of the $5,000 mark.
Okay. Well, I'll go back through my notes as well, but it does seem like there is a competitive bidding process.
Yeah.
For contractors.
Yeah, you just need to show that you attempted to find the most reasonably priced contractor that's appropriate to meet the needs of your scope of work. So
Okay.
yeah, you would need to get 3 bids, and then just show that the one that you have is, on par with the rest of the market, essentially.
Okay, so just to give you an example,
Mhm.
World Be Well is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I serve as a technical advisor through a California Public Benefit Corp, B Corp, Healing Living Systems, a for-profit organization. And so if there was any contract amount that would involve Healing Living Systems, that would need to go out for bid. That World Be Well would then need to find at least 3, or at least put an offer in for 3 bids, different contractors, whether or not they actually get bids back from 3 contractors. I think your contractor document states a process for how to approve and what have you. So that would be the process if Healing Living Systems were to provide services for World Be Well. And in an application that World Be Well would file?
Yeah, so if World Be Well is the lead applicant, which is, as you just sort of stated, and you want Healing Systems to be provide a contracted service, then you are correct in all the things you just described. Yeah, so if the service for the contractor would be over 5K, and you're right, I just pulled out the document just so I would have a point of reference. Yes, you're correct that if the transaction services are more than $5,000, then you go through this process of advertising for bids.
Okay.
And getting at least 3 bids. You are correct. But if you're contracting for under 5,000, it seems that you can just include it in your budget and move forward with that service without the bidding process.
Now, as an alternative approach, World Be Well as a private enterprise, but with revenues less than $5 million, would be able to make application for technical support services to nonprofits throughout the region. And then the billing would be through CDFA for whatever that amount would be. And then the services offered to those nonprofits over that period would be free services from their perspective.
Yeah, so you're saying then instead of having those services be a contracted service through a different applicant, this organization would be this for-profit business, I suppose, would be a lead applicant, write a Track 2 application to become a technical assistance provider, and then you would essentially just report out on, we provided technical assistance to 25 community guard or whatever it is that your measurable is at a reasonable rate of, 100% technical assistance, as you just described, those services would definitely qualify as a standalone Track 2 application.
Okay. And again, if we needed to bring in specialty advisors under Healing Living Systems, the for-profit, it too, if the services were greater than 5,000, would have to go out for bid or use its policy as it's pre-written.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're needing like an irrigation specialist to make sure that you have enough water for the acreage that you want to develop or something in that, yes, then that's exactly correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else have? Oh, sorry.
Easy had some questions.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Easy, please. Or Ez. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. If you could let me know, that'd be great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Whew. I wasn't sure if I was still muted. Great questions, and thank you for the opportunity to ask mine. And it was actually along the lines of the previous questions, so some of it has been answered. The other question I had was around the development of this grant. Is this the first time this grant has been offered? And if not, then is there a way that we can review prior submissions and see what qualified or what didn't qualify, just to get a better understanding to improve our chances of getting qualified?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is the first time that this grant has ever been offered. So we don't have any previous applicants that you would be able to reference. If you're unfamiliar with grants and you want to look at something, you could always look at the USDA's Urban Ag Innovations and Production applicants. That is like a much more behemoth-y style grant than in terms of the application process.
Right.
But it might, if you've never seen a grant, if you're really unfamiliar with it and you just want some examples, that would be an option. Another option that would be a CDFA source is you could look at, so CDFA has a program called Farm to School. If you just put in your search engine, CDFA Farm to School, they have a producer's track in the Farm to School grant. And there's previous applications on that site, on the farm to school grant. So you could look at some of those previous applicants, but there is nothing for this specific funding opportunity. We have not had this before.
Okay, is there going to be if you miss this year, would there be another one next year, or this is probably a test also?
Well, so I mean, all I can say with any surety is that right now the state is saying that this is a one-time funding opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, the money came out of the state's general fund, so it's not like tied to a designated piece of legislation, which a lot of reoccurring programming is tied to some sort of legislation. This was kind of like the state being like, oh, let's see if urban ag program would be cool, or some, you know, so this is right now one-time funding. Of course, all I can say is I'm going to advocate for another round, but I don't have any. I'm not that powerful, so but I'm gonna try for sure.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, newcomers. We're kind of just playing it by ear here, so if you would like to ask a question, you can either just come off mute, and go for it, or it would be preferable to not use the chat just because I don't have any moderators helping me today. So just go ahead, put yourself off mute, and feel free to launch into your questions. So we don't have a line right now. So really anybody who, hey, Casey.
Hi. I'm happy to go if someone else wasn't waiting in front of me. Okay, cool. Well, thanks again for hosting these.
Of course.
So I have two questions. The first one is just about the priority population map, and just wanted to clarify if that's a requirement that either the urban ag site, that the urban ag site has to be located in the sort of like layers that are featured in the map, because I know there's like different layers. There's like the disadvantaged community, there's low income. So yeah, I think I was just a little confused about that.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, the priority populations map has, like you said, the low income layer that they measure. They have disadvantaged communities, and then they have this little sidebar buffer half a mile area. Anything that's in those three, the buffer, the disadvantaged, and low income, if your project either has to be located in or serve a population that qualifies as one of those. So in answer to your question, if your farm site, I actually almost like don't want to give an example because can you be more specific and maybe I can answer a question?
Yeah, I guess there's like one site that we've worked with in the past. I don't actually know if we were funded, if they would end up applying, but or if they're applying on their own. But just for clarification's sake, it's a farm or an urban ag site located like adjacent to juvenile hall.
Oh, interesting.
And
okay.
So like where the farm or the urban ag site is located it doesn't fall under any of those layers, but they would be serving, I don't remember like the specifics of who they're working with right now, but in the past, the idea was that they would be able to work with the youth at juvenile hall. So I don't know where all of those youth are from. So I guess that's where it's like a little unclear.
Yeah, do you know if the juvenile, I mean, I think you said it's across the street, so the likelihood of it being a different census tract is probably not
I think
that high.
It's also not, it's not, doesn't fall under any of those layers either.
Well, if I'm just giving you a straightforward answer, the answer is no, they're not eligible because they're not serving a community that's located in, and the farm is not located in an area. It has to either serve or be located in.
Okay.
That's like such a conundrum because you're obviously, wanting to work with a demographic that may very well qualify as on an individual basis as people. But it would not, unless it was located and or serving, like I said. Gosh, that's a weird one.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful.
Oof.
And then the other question, I think I asked this during the webinar you hosted a couple weeks ago. So I apologize if you did answer this in like the FAQ because I haven't gotten to that yet, but it's about like the sort of guidelines around sub-awardees.
Okay.
And then the like indirect rate
Mhm.
percentage. So I think the question I'd asked before was if that indirect rate, the 30% cap, also is then passed on to the sub-awardees. So this
Okay.
is for, I think, track 1. Is that
For track 1. So your
Yeah,
question
sorry.
is, do folks who receive sub-awards also have the ability to set aside up to 30% of their sub-award for indirect costs?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's your question.
yeah.
Okay, so the answer is yes. They
Okay.
can also use part of their costs for that.
Okay. Okay, let me see. I made some notes about and then I think, oh, I can't remember the details of this. So the term like subcontractor and sub-awardee, I think mean very different things in the Resource Conservation District world. And so I think we wanted to clarify if there is like, could a sub-awardee be a subcontractor, or are they like officially just a sub-awardee? If that's confusing, I don't think I can clarify because I'm a little confused myself.
I don't know what your definition is of subcontractor. Like,
Yeah.
we're not using that language in the RFA. We
Okay.
have contractors that, like
Yeah.
as Seth was, or here it's Guru Mantra was talking about. If you're looking to hire a contractor, that would be one classification, and you could refer to those contractor guidelines document. So if you needed to bring in a contractor to help with like a special part of your project, for example, let's say you want to hire or contract with a certified accountant. So when you give out your sub-awards, you know that people are not going to be impacted by receiving the funds. That would be a contractor. Everyone who you're giving a sub-award to would simply be called a sub-awardee, and they would have to provide, and in order for you to comply with meeting the requirements of working with sub-awardees, you would just have to look at the document that says sub-awardee guidelines. It's an attachment.
Yeah.
And it has like something that says table 1, and that has all of the required data that you would need to collect on that sub-awardee to then report it to CDFA and say, this is where the money went. So those are the only things you would need to worry about. I don't really know what subcontractor means for RCDs.
Yeah. I know there was like something specific, and I'm totally blanking on what what that difference was. So I'll have to check back in.
Got 25 more minutes.
Actually, good
or
point.
next Tuesday.
Okay.
yeah, for sure. Or you can always send me an email too if you have some specific language that you're curious about. Like,
okay. Okay, I have one more clarifying question, and this is like really getting into the weeds with like how we function as RCDs. So I apologize if that's confusing.
Okay.
But so when it comes to like an RCD, so, and I think you're aware, like CARCD is going to apply, RCDs will be the sub-awardees. And so if CARCD has that 30% indirect cap, and then the sub-awardees can also, that indirect cap also applies to them. I guess in some cases with different grants, when RCDs are a sub-awardee, we don't necessarily have an indirect like rate. It's just included in our like billing rates. Does that make sense? So I guess the question is like, are both allowed, or is it simply like the subawardee would have that like indirect cap of 30%?
Okay, so
Sorry.
is this a little bit, is this sort of different than your first question, or
Sort
so
of.
okay, can you help me understand like how it's different than whether or not subawardees can use an indirect rate?
I guess it's like, it's more just like how, like when we're setting up a budget, like we either with funding we've received from a certain grant, either we have like a line item in the budget that's like in your indirect rate. And so based on however much you spend, then that percentage is sort of like added on to your, say, like quarterly invoice. But if you separate, if you don't have that indirect rate line item and it's like included in each person's billing rate. It's just, I guess that's very in the weeds, but it like sort of helps us wrap our heads around how we would go about doing this.
Okay, so if sorry everybody else, because this is really specific to reclamation districts, but so okay, I think I understand what you're asking. So California, the head applicant is going to subaward funds to specific reclamation districts. And then those reclamation districts are only responsible for providing the information in table 1. Okay. You're just another subawardee. It's not like there's a separate grant program for RCDs. You're all going to be treated like the same. Okay. So you don't have to go into a ton of shenanigans or massive specific line items like that for sub-award fund spent. You just have to be specific on what happened, how the money was spent. There is like a little, you're going to attach your invoices where we will see where the funding went. So yeah, you do not need to, if you're, for example, covering the staff capacity to revamp the irrigation at a community garden, well, that wouldn't be indirect at all because that's all direct services. So it's a terrible example.
That's okay.
But
just like, I think one example is like, well, like a lot of the RCDs are just considering like passing through funds to urban ag sites that we work with. So like for us, it would just be like, we would just be managing that, basically like passing through those funds and then providing support to those urban ag sites if they need it.
Right.
So like our time is basically like where this all applies.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, because that's the administrative cost of passing that. Oh gosh, you know what, Casey, I have to run this by Office of Grant Administration. That's such a specific, I don't think anyone else is going to be in this situation. So let me, is there any chance that you could send me an email that I could then pass along to the Grants Administration's office and see if there's a more clear resolution than what my understanding of it is?
Yeah, totally. Sorry about my barking dog. Yeah, I'll send you an email. And apologies to everyone else on here who this doesn't apply to.
Thanks, Casey.
Okay.
That's why we're here. Okay, cool. Thank you. We have 20 minutes if anyone's got a lingering question.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
How's it going?
Going well.
Good. Okay, so I have a few questions actually. So I'll just jump into it. Let's see, with regard to like the advance payments, if we wanted to get a line of credit before the first advance payment came through, would we be able to include interest for that line of credit? No?
No, so loans and stuff, anything that's like in the loan world is not an eligible expense.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Can you type that one? I need to like write this down. I would love to include this in a written response as well. Usually these Q&As I'm just going to post the video, but I feel like that's a really good one.
Yeah, I had it written down already, so I put it in chat.
I'll cut and paste all the chats after. So could we include an interest line of credit? Yeah, so yes, anything that's loan related is something CDFA cannot contribute towards. And then the details on advance payment, things
Mhm.
that you definitely want to know is, and it's in the advanced payment guidelines, which is a attachment that you'll find in the application. It's also an
Okay.
attachment that's available in the RFA document on our website. So you can just upload that advanced payment guidelines and read through it. But I
Yeah,
can
for
tell you
sure.
in a nutshell, some of the things that you'll want to know, which is for advanced payments, there's a one-page application saying we need advanced payments because of financial hardship, or we don't have the money in our bank account to do this, right? You
Yeah.
know, without it. So there's a form that you would submit. That application then takes like 30 to 45 days to process. So there's a lag, like just be
Okay.
prepared for that. You can only submit for up to 3 months of the expenses that you're going to spend in your advance payment request.
Mhm.
So, and then you have to spend all of that down before you submit your next advance payment request. So you can't have $10,000 sitting around from your last advance payment and then submit another advance payment request. You'd have to spend it completely down before submitting your next advance payment request form.
Okay, so then we'd have to account for that 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
Every time. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I had a follow-up to that. I lost it, but maybe it'll come back to me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's see. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the contractors and the bidding process for that. If we're already working with contractors within the organization who have been doing like performing services for us, like a social media manager, a contract based, would we need to still go through the bidding process since we already have like a relationship established with that person?
These are fabulous questions. Could you type that one in too? Because I
Yeah.
actually do need to check with grants administration's office on that. If you're already, and actually this goes back to Guru Mantra and Seth's question, if you're already working with a contractor, what would there still need to be? I mean, when I read the contractor guidelines, the answer is, yeah, you need to get
Yeah.
bids if the amount is more than $5,000 to prove that you're getting a rate that's reasonable from that contractor. So based on the guidelines, which, I mean, I've only worked for the state for less than a year, everything that's written down is what they're going to tell you the answer is.
Yeah,
So
that's been my experience too.
Yeah, my gut feeling is if you're going to include that cost as a contractor, that and the amount is more than $5,000, that yes, you will actually have to get 2 other bids to prove that your rate that you're getting or you're paying for is reasonable. But I'll double check for both of the folks in this room who had contractor questions, whether or not there is some sideline of if you're already using this subcontractor, if there is some workaround, but I haven't seen any language in the guidelines to state that that's an option. So, I will include that in the written answers, and I'm going to hope to have that posted by Monday. So all the answers, the written questions that are coming in today, there should be a document on our website that'll be like the Q&A document, and you'll be able to find the answer to that question there.
Okay, great. And then I had one more question regarding like a vehicle. If we were to purchase a vehicle, I think I saw somewhere that things like gas, insurance, maintenance would not be included as an allowable cost. Okay. But if we were to do mileage for like staff and volunteers on their own vehicle, that's included? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. There's a section in the budget for like travel and mileage.
Okay. Just want to clarify and kind of balance those two options out.
Yeah.
I think, that's it for now.
Okay, great. Yeah. And so if you do want to purchase the vehicle with this grant fund, just make sure that you can cover the whole cost of the vehicle, because if there's a loan included in covering another part of the cost for whatever reason, that would not be allowable.
Okay.
So just make sure that you'll be able to purchase the whole thing in full with whatever funding you're going to be using for that. So,
okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. Okay. Seth or Guru Mantra?
Yeah, just kind of a caveat to Nicole's question. For example, the web design contractor. If Nicole or Guru Mantra was able to show the contract agreement and the amounts, would, upon review of that, would that be a consideration in whether that was a viable pre-existing agreement that would not require it to go out for bid?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I just need to see if the grants administration's office can give me an answer to that. So the question specifically is if there's already an existing contract with a contractor that's providing a service and has been providing a service, can you just continue to use that as is without going through the bidding process, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to get back to you all on that. And yeah, so that's a question that is definitely worth asking the administration's office for an answer.
Now, most of the questions I think have been around growing produce, fruits and vegetables, and delivering it. But I believe in the description of urban ag, there's also recognition of processing and distribution.
Yes.
So in those areas, would the processing and distribution be considered a viable project if it is or is not using local produced food?
Ooh. So you're saying that maybe, so for example, actually, let's say you want to like spend some of the funds to do an aggregation facility or a light processing center or something like that?
Let's say you were to do that, or let's say you were helping a group of home processors. And those home processors, but it could be a commercial kitchen operation. The processing would occur in a priority population area or region and in an urban setting or within 25 miles. But would it also require the use of local produced fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, there's no language saying that that's a requirement. So if I'm just going to take it on a literal basis of what the definition is, you are totally still meeting the definition of either cultivating, which is not the act that's happening, but processing and distribution of agricultural goods. Yeah, I think that would still be an allowable cost, an allowable project, as long as the produce is being distributed to a priority population, then I don't see an issue with that. You're still getting food that otherwise wouldn't be getting to community members. So yeah, there's nothing designating it that the original product needs to be from a specific place.
Great.
So I guess kind of another caveat on distribution. For example, home delivery out of a farmer's market, let's say, where someone in a priority population, they're not able to use their SNAP EBT for distribution costs. Would funds be eligible for use for the delivery fees associated with home deliveries from a farmer's market?
Wow, that's creative. So you're saying, okay, there's a farmer's market. Somehow people would put in a grocery list to a delivery option, yes. and then that van would be able to drive food boxes directly to people's homes, and you would be covering the staff time, the gas, maybe even the vehicle to make that happen.
Yes.
I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't be an eligible cost. Yeah, that is distribution for sure. And from a farmer's market will definitely get you, one thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be hundreds of applications.
Sure.
So, if you're going to talk about your previous question in terms of like, does the product have to be local or not? Is that going to score as well? I don't know. But you're talking about a farmer's market, local producers distributing it locally. In terms of just the community impact of it on all ends of the spectrum, it's probably a more competitive approach, if I'm being totally
Okay.
honest. But in terms of sheer eligibility, I don't see any reason why either of those would be ineligible based on the definitions of urban agriculture and the scope of work that you're proposing there.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
Sure. We have 9 more minutes until our next meeting on Tuesday.
I just remembered
Yay.
the thing I forgot earlier. So do the advance payments need to be of like equal amounts at all? For instance, if we wanted to buy the vehicle up front and just spend a bunch of money in the first 3 months, that would be fine.
Yeah, so you can yes, that's a great question. No, it does not have to be like $5,000 every 45 or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
If you're gonna buy a tractor and you need the 50K right off the bat, then that's what you need. So it's just more about what you need to spend down in 3 months at a
Okay.
time. And then the only other thing that you would really want to know with regards to that is that you can only receive advanced payments for 90% of the grant. There's
Right.
going to be 10% that is going to be a reimbursement at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So that would be,
that clarifies things.
yeah. So you can ask for up to 90% all at once if you need it within the first 3 months of your project, because maybe your project is to buy a tractor and
Mhm.
then you're done. And you need an advance payment for that. That might be your entire proposal. But again, like I said, you will need to withhold 10% of your total program cost, project cost.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Sure. Great. I see 2 things in the chat, but oh, these are the questions that I need to send to OGA. Okay. Let's see. Were there any questions from last week? Specifically, I think Seth and Guru Mantra were the folks who were in the session last week. I did type out all the answers. I'm just waiting for them to get approved and then have them posted by the web team. But if there's anything that you remember that didn't get answered last week, I think I sent you a written reply to a bunch of the questions that you sent over. Okay, so you're good to go. Okay, great. So we've got another about 5 minutes. We can all just hang out here. Oh, great.
The contractor agreement that people are referencing, where
Mhm.
can I find that? I've
Sure.
looked online. I don't see it really anywhere.
great.
So
That's a good question. Let me actually just go into the CDFA website and see if I can tell you exactly where to find it. Okay, so
Seth thinks it's the last page of the grant guidelines.
the last page in the RFA. Seth?
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually in the RFA right now. I'm gonna scroll
Yeah,
all the way.
44, 44.
Yep. You're correct, sir. It is so yes, if you go to here, I can actually I'll just share my screen so that it's like real easy to follow along. Okay, so we're just at the Urban Ag Grant Program website page. So you would just go, you can put into your search engine CDFA Urban Ag, you'll get to our website. This is our website. Then you'll scroll down and this drop down opens and closes. So just open the Apply for Urban Agriculture Grant Program drop down, hit that and it'll pop open. And then you'll see in green the 2023 request for applications. It's a live link to a PDF of the RFA. You'll just click on that link. And then as Seth mentioned, you can just scroll to the very end of this thing. It's the very last appendix item, and you'll see contractor guideline, and you would open that link as well. And it'll take you to this. And ignore that it says draft. I literally just realized that. It's the same It's the same document that it should be. But it is this contractor guidelines document.
Thank you. They all say draft, by the way. I've been saving
sorry.
them on my computer. So just
Okay.
FYI.
Thanks. Yep, that's one of the many things. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, you can ignore that it says draft, but this is absolutely the cut and pasted contractor guidelines from the Grants Administration's office documents. Okay. Oh, and were you guys still having issues getting into Amplifund by chance, or does anyone having issues getting into Amplifund anymore? I know that there was some trouble with that.
We'll give it a shot again and see how
Okay.
far we get.
Okay, great. The easiest way, if you want to make sure that you're getting to the right part of Amplifund, is going to be let me go back. Let me close this contractor guidelines, go back to the web page. Yeah, the easiest way for you to get to the right Amplifund page is just going to be to hit that go to the application link. So you'll hit that. I mean, I'm the admin, so it directly opens it up and takes me to this thing, but you'll get taken to a page where it asks you to create a login.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be the easiest way to get to the right spot.
Great.
Well, we have 2 more minutes.
Where's everybody calling in from today? We're in Riverside.
A good question.
I'm in Oakland.
Oakland,
Chico
I'm in
here.
Chico,
San Diego.
San Diego. A lot of my favorite places.
Very cool. Yolanda, where's your farm? I think you said it.
Yeah, it's in Oakland, southeast Oakland,
Cool.
near the zoo.
Nice.
They'll do amazing urban ag work in Oakland. I'm always impressed by the organizations and the advocacy of your city.
Yeah, we want to steal all your good ideas, and bring them down here.
Oh, that's awesome. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that having a grant opportunity where, you know, we're getting so many, even just having applicants from across the state, like so many people are coming out of the woodwork that I'm like, oh, there's urban ag over here and over here. Hopefully there'll be an opportunity to somehow bring everyone together in some way. I gotta like brainstorm that out, but it would be so great to have more of a network in some way. Maybe this is something we could work on as a community. I don't have an answer to it, but it's a seed of an idea of like, how do we leverage all of these contacts and all of these folks that are coming out of the woodwork and help make some connections.
We have a colleague works for the county, and she originally thought the best way to get our food system going was see if we couldn't get past a 1/4 cent sales tax added on with like a 10-year sunshine provision to get it established and see what we could do. But if we were to do that on a statewide basis to cover all of our food policy councils, we might actually get some real leverage and collaboration going, but nobody wants to pay anything. So
You're not wrong. I was like, oh man, that would be so great. But yeah, trying to like get a tax anything through the state is quite a thing. All right, friends. Well, it's 1 o'clock. Don't hesitate to email if something comes up between now and next Tuesday. This isn't the only opportunity to ask questions. Like I said, I will be updating the written document and posting it to our website. I'm hoping no later than by Monday. So otherwise, thank you for joining, and we will see you.
See you next time.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
great.
Thanks.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.